Welcome back from lunch. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we're going to have our first fire chat, which is hardware, heaven or hell. Okay, so we can sit down. So I think we all know that hardware is hard, right? That's the kind of most cliche thing to say, but yeah, it's hard. And recent news, Doppler, one of the most promising hardware startups in Silicon Valley, recently had to close down. So, I mean, there is a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunities. So, is it heaven or hell? So, today, introduce yourself and we'll...
So, I'm Ray. I'm co-founder of FreeDrum, the virtual drum kit that we have on display outside as well, and also CEO and co-founder of Block Zero, the design and innovation studio based in Malmö that started FreeDrum.
I'm Alper. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Volumental. And should I?
I feel like we can't see you there. Okay. I think we should just move on. Yeah.
And what we do is that we do 3D body scanning. Currently active in footwear, so we scan people's bodies in 3D in case of feet in physical retail stores. And using that, we kind of recommend them the products that they're going to fit them, and also in the very near future build custom products that are made for you directly.
Yeah. Okay. And I think we should just start with one of the things that I didn't really think about is the fact when a hardware startup is very different from a tech startup. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the main differences for people who don't realize how hard it is?
I would say the main thing that we didn't know when we started FreeDrum, and I wish we did, was by definition, anything that can go wrong will go wrong in a hardware business. During the entire life cycle of both creating the hardware and designing it, doing the industrial design for the enclosure of it, but the entire manufacturing life cycle of it that it will have to go through, all the way to when you're shipping the product. The smallest you need to really make it foolproof. The smallest disturbance to that cycle could have implications that are cascading, that keep multiplying. So you need to really protect yourself in that way, and that's something that we didn't know. Of course, things can go wrong in any kind of tech startup, in a software business, in a cloud-based business, but addressing those is far quicker and easier in the experience that we'd had before, and we weren't really prepared for how to deal with, how to problem solve when something along this fully functioning chain started malfunctioning. Like how do you deal with that, and at what cost to make it acceptable?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think. Well, you're shipping atoms instead of bits, so there is that's a fundamental difference.
That's the difference, right? That you actually have a product and a technology.
So the other day I was talking with a friend, and there's this figure of speech that says, we ship tons of things, and I did the math, and we actually shipped tons, literal, if you weigh them, it becomes many tons, kind of. So that's one difference, of course. The other difference, I think, is that how you're sort of perceived. I think it's somewhat there are exceptions, but it's somewhat unsexy to make hardware. It's a little bit like VC poison with some VCs, anyways. So there are additional challenges compared to it's the 57th fintech app. This is just put it on the app store kind of thing. It's different. It's quite different.
So how did you get into the hardware startup? How did you get in there?
For us, it was through tinkering and exploration. We love technology, and we love playing around with the latest technology. And in the recent years, I would say in the past decade, the price of hardware and the price of doing that kind of exploration using hardware has dropped significantly. It's become democratized to a point that anyone can pick up an Arduino, anyone can pick up a number of sensors and start playing around. One of the most wonderful things that I just heard out on the floor when I was showing how FreeDrum works was someone picked it up and started playing and said, "This is amazing. I'm going to try and build that at home." And the truth is, they can. It is now at a point where you can try your hand at that kind of prototyping, that kind of exploration.
What do you think that is easier today because we have more technology around us and more tools, or
The technology is advanced. It's become commoditized. It's become cheaper. It's become easier to use for for more of a mass audience as opposed to hardware specialists or electronic specialists. And I think that's the main difference. I forget what the question was.
No, how you got started, and like.
So yeah, how we got started was through that kind of exploration, and actually finding one use case that really utilized the things that we wanted to play around with. We're like, we want to play around with angle detection using gyroscopes and velocity detection using accelerometers. And what is one thing where the angle matters and the velocity matters? Drumming is one use case. So we started actually looking into that and trying to tailor our exploration towards it. And within a matter of weeks, we were able to create a prototype that worked to our non-drumming sensibilities, at least. So we actually put it in front of actual drummers, and to our surprise, they seemed to really respond to it and really like it. So then we continued along that path of saying, okay, our exploration was tech focused. Now let's try and make it user focused. Let's see if it actually resonates with people, drummers and otherwise. So we try to perfect the user experience, and then we try to get feedback on just the idea in itself. We took a very short video, put it on Facebook, and we got an enormous amount of traction.
People. Does it work now? Like.
No, so
I was like, how does it work?
No, but
but we can try it later. That's amazing. Okay. And what about you, Alfred?
We are a spin-off company from KTH, the Technical University in Stockholm. And I think we have a much more sort of a tech research background. So I myself did my PhD there, and before that I used to program robots for NASA in Los Angeles.
As you do, that's just a casual.
And so that was sort of like the genesis of what. So we actually, it was kind of funny. We didn't want to be, or initially set out to be, a hardware startup. We kind of wanted to solve a problem, and then we see that nobody has the hardware for this. So then we set out to make it. Okay, we just screw it. We have to do this. Nobody else is gonna do it, so we have to do it. So yeah, like I said, we spinned off from KTH, and it was sort of part of a research project on 3D scanning, 3D mapping, which is sort of now part of a lot of AR core, AR, VR type of thing. And this is really relevant to other stuff like drones and robotics and stuff, some of the stuff that I worked in my previous life, kind of. And from then on, we kind of just made a bet. I think that's quite important. There's a point of no return, kind of you're going through the bridge. This is the last exit before investing the money and the time and resources to build a hardware prototype. So we decided to go for it, and since then we are in about 1,000 physical locations around the world in 32 countries and scanning hundreds of thousands of people regularly now. So
how does it work? I go into.
Yeah, so you go into a store, and then you just step on this mat looking thing, and then it takes 3 seconds to get yourself scanned. And then you sort of see your a nice stylized version of your your shape, your body shape, and then so a lot of people actually learn new stuff about themselves from that. So it's fun experience. And then using that data and also plus using the purchase history data, we build an AI for product recommendations. So we can sort of recommend you what's going to fit you the best. So you don't have to worry about if you're buying things online or on your phone. It's just going to fit you. The cherry on top is that now we are pretty excited about sort of building products custom made using this technology. So this just last week, I think we went out with Adidas on a Wall Street Journal article on their efforts for 3D printing entire shoes. And that's something that is now available for athletes. So one of our customers, Bauer Skates, for example, they make 70% of all ice skates around the world. And currently our scanner is the way to buy their skates.
Wow.
Period. And they are making custom-made skates for the NHL players. But these kind of things will eventually trickle down to the 12-year-old who wants to also skate, and we are pretty excited to enable that.
It will be one of those things in X amount of years when you look back and be imagine when you kind of had to think that it would fit you, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it'd be you look back and be wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit ridiculous that people have to think about.
It is actually now when you say it. I'm hey.
Exactly. We're thinking about we're gonna go to Mars in 5 years and so on, but somebody will solve this,
Yeah.
right? Surely. So.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some of the more so it's the topic heaven or hell, a bit more the tricky things. One of the things that obviously, yes, it's it's easier to do today than before, but still, like, isn't it requiring a lot of like money and investment funding to get a hardware startup off the ground? Because there's so many aspects. What do you think about that?
It does actually. The upfront cost, I wouldn't say actually. I would say that the runway that you require to get a hardware startup off the ground has shrunk significantly, and it's a lot closer to what you need to get a truly good software business off the ground. So it's quite close, but that is a barrier to entry that still exists. One of the things that Alper said was that there is a point of no return. That at one point you just say, okay, I'm dedicating myself to this. It's not really an incremental process. I need to do the next 6 months in order to have something in the consumer's hand, and I need to dedicate myself to this. And we went through that point of no return using crowdfunding, which is what a lot of hardware startups are looking to do, and build their runway using that as opposed to traditional means of getting investment. And we decided to see what would be the minimum amount that we would need in order to go through that one batch of reasonable volume of this hardware, develop it properly, manufacture it properly, and ship it. And we asked for that amount on Kickstarter, and that would have been our point of no return. And we completely went past that.
Tell us more about it, because that's a very impressive Kickstarter campaign.
We asked for, I think, $100,000 or $110,000, and we ended up with $700,000.
That's just one of those things that doesn't happen, like when people hear these stories, and you're like, really?
It's rare. Yeah, we're the second most highest funded campaign from Sweden.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So it's quite the honor. But the bad scenario for us would have been if we had asked for 110 and gotten funded 115. That way we would have gone past that point of no return, but not with a lot of margin for error that I mentioned before. Like, those margins need to exist. So we were very lucky to get our start and that run.
What do you think? Like, because I do see on, like, for example, Kickstarter, these heated jackets, and you see a lot of, like, I went on Kickstarter with a pure tech product and app. Very bad idea. I mean, I raised the funds, but like you say, just the funds. But what do you think? Why do you think like hardware products are so successful on like platforms like Kickstarter?
Hardware people, for some reason, tend to tell stories better. A lot of the hardware startups that make it to Kickstarter, they know exactly who they're going for. They know exactly what problem they're solving, and they communicate it better. So they end up generating a lot of excitement and a lot of interest for people that they've specifically gone after with their tailored stories. And unfortunately, there is an oversaturation of software products that are out there, and they're seen more and more as commodities that are not in themselves all that valuable. So they fail to generate the same kind of excitement. They still do, just not in the same number as the hardware ones.
Okay. And because we were saying you're actually shipping tons, which is, correct, because that's big machines kind of thing. Like, that must cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah, it's about 10 kilos. So if you, it's easy to ship.
Still, that's a pretty.
It's much less.
Not 10
it's
kilos.
It's a little bit more than that, yes. I mean, so what do you think of the funding?
I mean, we just raised money. I mean,
congratulations.
No. I mean, for that product, we didn't go the Kickstarter route because we are a B2B business.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually, so you can't. There's no B2B for Kickstarter. Maybe someone here will build that. I don't know.
Opportunity.
So we raised funding round back maybe now 3 years ago now, and we used the spoils from that to build the product. But it was not an easy decision, of course. I mean, like the point of no return, it's very costly. You probably can't make that mistake too many times.
No.
Like maybe once is enough.
Maybe.
Usually. It's like, but not more than that usually. So that's how we did it.
And in terms of talking about opportunities and challenges, so obviously we know it's hard, but also what is the opportunities that a normal tech startup wouldn't have, for example?
One of the opportunities that I see actually compared to traditional hardware startups, if you're a hardware tech startup, is when you sell a product, a physical product, for the longest time, it's been a volume business. You try to get good margins on every unit that you sell, and you try to sell as many as you can. But now, with something like Freedrum, with a lot of the tech hardware startups, you have the opportunity to go beyond that, to use your hardware as a launching pad to gain other value into the company, whether that's based on a community that you create around your hardware product that has a large following, that has a dedicated following, whether it's doing software as a service or software platforms that use your hardware platform, but trying to diversify beyond just your revenue generation, or your value being based on the volumes that you sell. And that's becoming more and more easier and easier to do today.
Yeah, I think it's like very similar my experience also. Like there's a, like as we said, there's a cost to sort of shipping hardware and getting it to people's hands, and hopefully also there's also like a benefit to doing that. And the benefit is that you get entrenched really well. You get really sticky. Like you're not just an app that you can be swiped away, kind of.
Like that
you're there.
That 10 kilos is there.
Yeah, and the investment is made, and now you have an in to do like improve that solution, to sell more other things, to just like expand beyond that. So I think that's a pretty crucial part of it. That it's not like done. You kind of like have to keep like building it. And for us, another aspect is that we get to collect a really special data set that no one really has. So, and that is, I think, if you can utilize that data set to build the next version of the product or other products, like the recommendation engine, for example.
Or continuously improve the product that you have.
Exactly. That's, I think, could be a winning strategy. So that's an opportunity to do that.
And I think it's interesting as well because hardware startups are really like changing so many things in our, obviously tech is as well, but like what do you think in the future? Like we said, with the clothes, you will know the site. What do you see for the future? What changes will we?
I think like in my experience, you have the sort of like the world's hardware is sort of made in China, right? It's not really, but it is kind of. And I think that that's the back end, and there's more and more the front end sort of part of it. And the front end is getting easier and easier and easier to a point where, this is not the case today, of course, but to a point where, upload these files, enter the number of units, it's going to be made, and it's going to be sort of, you will be able to sort of sell it from that point on. So that I think is a very positive sort of development. In terms of other opportunities, I actually am one of the ones to sort of worry about that, the ecosystem in Sweden and Stockholm area, because I think I worry that a lot of our physical stuff will be made by other people, because nobody wants to do the hard stuff. They want to sort of do the 58th way of sending money to someone else. Like now you can just blink and send money to your friend or something. It's just hard, right? But I kind of worry about that, like who's gonna build the self-driving cars, the physical things. Like we are gonna still use physical things.
Yeah.
So I would sort of raise a flag with the community, I think, to sort of think about that and think about just like how can we foster sort of deep tech, hard to do, hard tech stuff.
Exactly.
And just to continue along that line, what I would say as a trend that excites me is the blurring lines between a hardware business and a software business. We find more and more at Block Zero that a lot of the work that we do, the digital experiences that we create that are primarily digital have a physical manifestation to them, or a hardware experience ends up having a digital interface to it. So this blending of physical and digital interfaces is something that's very exciting for me.
Great. Well, thank you. And I was wondering, we got like another minute or two. Is there anyone who has a question? There we go. We normally would have a microphone, but I actually don't know. So yeah, just
we can repeat it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a very interesting question, and luckily we haven't come across that. It needs to be far more rigorous than even a software testing process needs to be. And I think the key is that in your design, you need to make sure that you're not embedding a lot of extremely complicated logic in the hardware design. Like a lot of what we do, a lot of the brains of what we've done, it rests in the firmware, and that can be updated, that can be amended in many ways. So keep the hardware simple and do rigorous testing is what we've done.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think, I mean, very similar to that. One thing we try to do is that we try to make it really modular. So if one part sort of breaks, you can just snap it away and then throw it, or hopefully not throw it, recycle it. But and then we can ship you just that part, and that's what we are doing actually, because retail is a very like harsh place. It's one of the harshest places. Like I was in Hong Kong the other day, and I saw a kid just pouring his drink on our scanner next door. I was like, what are you doing? But I couldn't speak Chinese, so we couldn't communicate. But so that's one thing. The other thing I think is that try to make, I guess this flies in the face of like hardware and so on, but try to make hardware more and more is a container for software. So since software is so malleable, it's so like updatable and so on and so forth, as he said, like keep the hardware simple, use off-the-shelf components. The sort of the disadvantage with that is that you'll typically probably get data that is quite noisy, that is not really specifically made for your application. And in order to fix that, you're going to have to do a lot of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so put the effort in that part instead of like shipping some expensive, brittle thing.
Perfect.
So is the first phrase that you learn in any language, don't drink your drink. Don't spill your drink on the scanner.
Exactly.
No, but I should.
Yeah, you should. Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.